On our 5th anniversary, he texted his close colleague throughout our entire dinner. I thought it was work until I discovered their Tuesday lunch appointments had been recurring for 2 years straight. He demanded I apologize to her. I agreed, but insisted on doing it in front of her husband. Before our meeting, I submitted evidence to both his company's HR and my lawyer an emergency motion to freeze his newly approved $90,000 bonus. That evening, as I delivered my apology, the doorbell rang. A process server stood there. His bonus wasn't where he thought it would be anymore. My name is Lena Hartley, and at 29, I thought I had built a life as solid as the wireframes I designed at Cobalt Finch, the boutique design studio where I worked as a UX researcher. Our townhouse in Maple Ridge, Illinois, sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees that turned golden every October. Dylan and I had our routines down to a science Saturday farmers markets, Sunday meal prep, joint checking accounts that we reviewed together on the first of each month. We were the couple who color-coded our shared Google Calendar and actually stuck to it. Dylan worked as an operations manager at Iron Ridge Supply, a regional logistics company 40 minutes north of our home. At 34, he'd climbed steadily through their ranks, earning respect for his ability to streamline warehouse workflows and negotiate vendor contracts. His annual performance review was coming up, and he'd been practically glowing about the $90,000 bonus his boss had hinted was already approved. We had spreadsheets for that money: 40% toward the down payment on a larger house, 30% to investments, 20% to demolish the ugly kitchen in our current place, 10% for the vacation to Portugal we'd been planning since before our wedding. Marina Vale entered our orbit like a comet that at first seemed harmless, even beautiful. Dylan came home one Thursday evening talking about the new sales lead who'd joined their team. "She's sharp," he said, chopping onions for our stir-fry while I sorted through fabric samples for new living room curtains. Closed 3 major accounts in her first month. The warehouse guys actually listen when she talks, which is basically a miracle. I remember feeling pleased that Dylan had a competent colleague. His previous sales lead had been a disaster, showing up late, fumbling client presentations, creating more work for everyone. "You should invite her and her husband over for dinner," I suggested, because that's what secure wives do. They welcome. They don't see threats in every woman who can hold an intelligent conversation with their husband. 3 weeks later, Marina and Gabe Vale sat at our dining room table. She was exactly as Dylan had described: animated, quick-witted, with the kind of confidence that came from knowing she was excellent at her job. She wore a burgundy sheath dress and gestured enthusiastically as she told stories about nightmare customers, making us all laugh. Gabe, her husband, was quieter, a software developer who seemed content to let his wife shine while he nursed a single beer through the entire evening. The first ping came around 10:30 p.m. Just as they were leaving, Dylan's phone lit up on the counter. Marina's name flashed across the screen. "Sorry, forgot to mention the Brennan account wants the projection reports by 9 a.m. tomorrow." "No rest for the wicked," Dylan laughed, typing back quickly. Those pings became our evening soundtrack. Marina needed clarification on inventory reports. Marina had questions about the new warehouse management system. Marina wanted Dylan's input on a client presentation, always after 9 p.m., sometimes past 11. "It's busy season," Dylan would say, thumb moving across his screen while we watched Netflix, the blue light reflecting off his glasses. "She's still learning the ropes." The Tuesday lunch meetings started in January. I only noticed them because I was trying to plan a surprise birthday lunch for Dylan and couldn't find an opening in his calendar. Every Tuesday, noon to 2 p.m., blocked off as lunch sync, operations / sales alignment. When I mentioned it, he barely looked up from his laptop. Marina and I need dedicated time to align on accounts. You know how it is impossible to get anything done with all the interruptions at the office. By March, those Tuesday blocks had been running for 2 months. By June, 6 months. By the following January, a full year. The patterns accumulated like dust, invisible at first, then suddenly everywhere. Dylan started password protecting his iPad for security reasons. He'd angle his phone away when texting. He'd mention Marina's thoughts on everything from quarterly projections to what brand of coffee the office should stock. Our dinners became triangulated conversations. Marina thinks we should switch to a different vendor for shipping supplies. Marina found this amazing lunch place near the office. Marina's husband never appreciates how hard she works. I told myself stories. Adult friendships were healthy. Work friendships especially, you spend more waking hours with colleagues than family. I had my own work friends. The difference was, I didn't text them at 11:45 p.m. about anything, urgent or otherwise. The weight of unspoken things settled over our house like humidity. I'd lie in bed listening to Dylan's phone buzz on the nightstand, counting the seconds until he'd pick it up. 3 buzzes was the maximum he could resist. I knew because I'd timed it, lying there in the dark like some pathetic scientist of my own marriage's decay. "Shh, you've been weird lately," Dylan said one night, after I'd asked if Marina really needed his input on her sales presentation at 10:15 on a Sunday. "It's like you don't trust me. It's honestly kind of insulting." The word trust hung between us like a challenge. I wanted to be the wife who trusted, the wife who didn't notice patterns or count text messages or wonder why her husband suddenly cared so much about his appearance on Tuesdays. So I swallowed my questions like pills that might cure me of suspicion. Our 5th anniversary was supposed to be special. I'd made reservations at Riverbend Bistro, the place where we'd had our 3rd date. Dylan wore the blue shirt I'd bought him for Christmas. He looked handsome, successful like the man I'd married who was going places. We ordered wine. The breadbasket arrived. His phone buzzed. Marina. Then again. Marina. "Just ignore it," I said quietly. 2 seconds, he promised, fingers already moving across the screen. 2 seconds became 10 minutes. Our appetizers arrived while he was still typing. I ate my salad in silence, watching my husband have a digital conversation with another woman while our anniversary dinner grew cold between us. The couple at the next table kept glancing over with that particular combination of pity and discomfort reserved for witnessing a relationship die in public. The white nights began during quarterly reporting periods. Marina would text about emergency calculations at 1:30 a.m., 2:45 a.m., sometimes 3:15 a.m. Dylan's phone would buzz, and he'd grab it before the second vibration, as if he'd been waiting. "Go back to sleep," he'd whisper, taking his phone to the bathroom. I'd hear him typing through the door, occasional muffled laughs that he'd later claim I imagined. "She's having a rough time with Gabe," Dylan explained one morning after a particularly long midnight session. "He doesn't understand the demands of her job. Must be nice to work from home and judge everyone else's hours." The iPad password change came in April. We'd always shared devices freely. I'd use his tablet for reading. He'd borrow my laptop for presentations. "It says we need better security practices," he announced, setting up Face ID that only recognized him. "You know, with all the data breaches lately." Strange how those security concerns only applied to his devices. I started noticing the credit card charges. Riverbend Bistro appeared every Tuesday our shared card, charges for 2 people. $68, $73, $85. "Team lunches," Dylan said when I asked. "Building department cohesion. Just you and Marina. Sometimes Tom from procurement joins," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes Ashley from customer service." But Tom was lactose intolerant and only ate at 3 specific restaurants near the office. Ashley brought lunch from home religiously, I knew, because she posted her meal prep on Instagram every Sunday. These were facts I kept to myself. Evidence I filed away like documents in a case I didn't want to be building. Marina started borrowing Dylan's parking pass for the executive garage. "Her spot is so far from the building," he explained. "It's just basic courtesy." She borrowed his phone charger, his jacket when the office was cold, his noise-canceling headphones for important calls. Each item created another excuse for contact, another reason for them to stop by each other's desks, another text about, "Hey, still have your—" The gaslighting was subtle at first. When I mentioned the frequency of their texts, I was paranoid when I questioned the Tuesday lunches. I was controlling when I asked why Marina needed his input on every decision. I was jealous of his professional success. Maybe you should talk to someone, Dylan suggested after I'd pointed out that Marina had texted 17 times during a single Sunday afternoon. This insecurity isn't healthy. It's like you want me to have only male colleagues. He started creating false equivalencies. You text your sister all the time. But my sister didn't message at 2 a.m. about spreadsheets. You have lunch with your coworkers. But I didn't have a standing weekly date that appeared on credit card statements with increasing frequency and cost. Our bedroom became a cold war zone. Dylan would scroll through his phone with his back to me, brightness turned down. I'd pretend to read while watching his reflection in the dark TV screen. We performed intimacy like actors who'd forgotten their motivation going through the motions while thinking about other scenes, other plots. When did you become this person? He asked one night after I'd made a comment about another late-night Marina text. The woman I married was confident, fun. Now you're just exhausting. The word stung precisely because I wondered the same thing. When had I become someone who counted text messages and studied credit card statements like forensic evidence? But I also wondered when he'd become someone who needed to be investigated. Our anniversary dinner, the one where he'd texted Marina through 3 courses, ended with Dylan actually taking a call from her in the restaurant parking lot. 5 minutes, he mouthed, leaving me standing by the car in my dress and heels while he paced 30 feet away, gesturing animatedly about some crisis that apparently couldn't wait until morning. 20 minutes later, he found me already in an Uber. That was incredibly childish, he said when he got home. Marina had a genuine emergency with the Patterson account. It's 10:45 p.m. on our anniversary. This is my career. Lena, our future. That bonus doesn't just happen, it takes work. Relationships. Being available when people need you. Being available for Marina, you mean. He shook his head with that particular blend of disappointment and condescension I'd come to recognize. You're creating problems where none exist. Marina is a colleague, a friend, maybe, but this jealousy is poisoning our marriage. The ultimatum came 2 weeks later. We were in counseling my suggestion, though Dylan treated each session like a tribunal where he was defending himself against my baseless accusations. Dr. Winters, our therapist, had just asked about boundaries with opposite-sex friendships when Dylan stood up. I'm done with this, he announced. I won't be interrogated about normal professional relationships. Either you trust me, or we have bigger problems than some text messages. In the parking lot afterward, he delivered his terms. You need to fix this jealousy issue. Apologize to Marina for making her uncomfortable with your suspicions. She knows you don't like her. She mentioned it affects her ability to work with me effectively. She said that she's considering requesting a transfer. Do you understand what that would do to my reputation? To have the top sales lead transfer because my wife can't handle me having female colleagues. I stared at him, this man I'd married, shared 5 years with, planned a future around. You want me to apologize to Marina. I want you to fix yourself, he said, getting into his car. If you can't do that, if you can't even apologize for the hostile environment you've created, then maybe we need to consider whether this marriage has run its course. He drove off, leaving me standing in the therapist's parking lot, wondering if I was losing my mind or just finally seeing clearly. The ultimatum hung between us for days. Apologize to Marina, or face the end of our marriage. I agreed to apologize. But I had my own conditions. I'll do it at their house, I said, with Gabe present. If I'm apologizing for my behavior affecting their marriage, he should hear it too. Dylan actually smiled, relief flooding his face. That's perfect. Marina will appreciate that. Shows you're taking responsibility. We set the date for the following Friday, 8 p.m. at the Vale's house. Dylan had no idea I'd already begun my own investigation. He had no idea what I'd found, and he had no idea that his $90,000 bonus, the money he'd been so proud of, so certain about, was about to become the key to everything. My laptop died on a Monday. The screen flickered once, twice, then went black forever. Dylan was in the shower when I knocked on the bathroom door. "Can I use your laptop? Mine just crashed and I have a presentation at 10. "Yeah, whatever you need," he called back. Passwords on the sticky note in my desk drawer. Those words, "whatever you need," would prove more generous than he intended. His desktop was cluttered with work files, budget spreadsheets, the usual chaos of a busy professional. I was moving files to make room for my presentation when I saw a folder labeled Personal Archive tucked inside 3 nested folders, as if he'd been trying to bury it deep enough to forget it existed. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The photos loaded in a grid, thumbnails of Tuesday afternoons stretching back 2 years. Dylan and Marina at Riverbend Bistro, her hand on his forearm as they laughed. Dylan and Marina in what looked like his car, selfie style, her head tilted toward his shoulder. Dylan and Marina, Marina and Dylan. Dozens of documented lunch dates that Tom from procurement and Ashley from customer service had never attended. The photos were intimate without being explicit, the kind of pictures you take when you want to remember how someone made you feel. Marina's eyes in every shot held something I recognized but didn't want to name. Dylan's expression was one I hadn't seen directed at me in months, maybe longer. I kept digging. His messages app was synced to the laptop. I searched Marina's name and watched 2 years of conversation cascade down the screen. The evolution was all there, preserved in digital amber. Professional exchanges that grew personal, personal that became intimate, intimate that became whatever this was. 2:15 a.m. 3 months ago. Can't sleep. Thinking about what you said at lunch. 3:42 a.m. Her response. Which part? When I said the quarterly reports were wrong, or when I said I wished things were different? 4:10 a.m. Him, you know which part. 1:28 a.m. 2 months ago. Her Gabe's asleep next to me, and all I can think about is today. 1:55 a.m. Him, same. Lena didn't even notice I was 2 hours late. 2:18 a.m. Her, if we'd met first. 2:19 a.m. Him, don't. 2:21 a.m. Her, why not, it's true. 2:35 a.m. Him, because thinking about it doesn't change anything. 2:37 a.m. Her, doesn't mean I can stop. The messages went on. Hundreds of them. Work discussions that dissolved into personal confessions. Complaints about spouses that became comparisons. Gabe, never. Followed by Dylan, always. Inside jokes. Shared songs. The kind of emotional intimacy that constitutes an affair even if, and I wasn't sure about the if, they hadn't physically crossed that line. I switched to his calendar. The Tuesday blocks weren't just lunch sync anymore. Starting 6 months ago, they had location tags: Riverbend Bistro, the Maple Room, Carriage House, Vincent's. Always restaurants at least 20 minutes from the office. Always places where running into colleagues would be unlikely. 24 months of Tuesdays. Over 100 lunch dates. All carefully documented in a calendar he thought I'd never see. The credit card statements were downloaded in his finances folder. I'd seen some charges, but not all. Not the $200 dinner at Chateau Margaux when he'd said he was at a client event. Not the $340 charge at Nordstrom the day before Marina showed up to a company party wearing a designer scarf that looked exactly like something Dylan would choose. Not the pattern of Tuesday lunches that averaged $75, $85 for 2 people who were supposedly discussing warehouse logistics. 24 months at roughly $75 per lunch came to $7,200. Add the dinners, the gifts, the coffees, the quick drinks after work that appeared as bar charges, over $12,000 spent on cultivating whatever this relationship was, all from our joint accounts, money we'd supposedly been saving for our future. I found the email from HR about his bonus next. Congratulations. Your $90,000 performance bonus has been approved and will be deposited in your next paycheck, scheduled for next Friday. Below that, a form Dylan had submitted to change the deposit account for the bonus from our joint checking to his personal account at a different bank. The account I'd never known existed. Submitted 2 weeks ago, right around the time he'd started pushing the apologize to Marina narrative. I sat back in his desk chair, my presentation forgotten. The evidence was overwhelming, methodical, undeniable. This wasn't a suspicious wife's paranoid imagination. This was a documented relationship that had been building for 2 years, funded by our money, conducted on company time, and hidden behind a facade of professional necessity. I created my own folder, screenshots of every message, every photo, every calendar entry, downloads of credit card statements with highlighted charges, the bonus email, and the account change form. I organized it chronologically, building a timeline that showed the progression from colleagues to whatever they thought they were. The shower turned off upstairs. I quickly uploaded everything to my private cloud storage, cleared the browser history, and opened my presentation software. By the time Dylan came downstairs, towel around his waist, I was deep in PowerPoint slides about user interface improvements. "Find everything okay?" he asked, kissing the top of my head. The normalcy of the gesture made my skin crawl. "Yes," I said. "Found everything I needed." He went back upstairs to dress. I listened to his footsteps above me, the man I'd married moving through our house, preparing for another day of deception. He'd come home tonight and ask about my day. He'd kiss me goodnight. He'd set his alarm for tomorrow, and at noon, he'd leave for another Tuesday lunch with Marina. Except this time, I knew. This time, I had proof. This time, I had a plan. I finished my presentation, saved it, and closed the laptop. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Victoria Brennan, the divorce attorney my cousin had used. I typed a simple message: "Need a consultation, have extensive documentation, urgent timing regarding significant marital assets." She responded within an hour. "Can you come this afternoon? Bring everything?" I told Dylan I had a dentist appointment. He barely looked up from his phone. Marina was probably texting about something crucial. I packed a USB drive with all the evidence and drove to Victoria's office in downtown Chicago. My hands steady on the wheel, my mind finally perfectly clear. The Thursday night before the scheduled apology, Dylan was practically euphoric. "Marina's really touched that you're doing this," he said, straightening his tie for work. "She says it shows real maturity." I smiled at my husband. "I want to do the right thing." "I knew you'd come around," he said, pulling me into a hug. "This is going to fix everything. You'll see." Over his shoulder, I saw his phone light up with her name. He didn't reach for it this time, too pleased with his victory to need immediate validation from her. "Yes," I agreed, stepping back from his embrace. "Tomorrow night will fix everything." The confrontation came Thursday morning, less than 36 hours before the scheduled apology. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Dylan was eating breakfast, scrolling through his phone, when I set the printed screenshots on the table beside his coffee. "What's this?" He didn't even look at them properly, just glanced and went back to his phone. 2 years of Tuesday lunches. Dylan, every single one documented. His thumb stopped moving. Slowly, he set down his phone and looked at the papers. I watched his face cycle through emotions: confusion, recognition, then settling into indignation. "You went through my computer." His voice rose. "You violated my privacy. That's your concern, not the $12,000 spent on lunch dates with Marina. They were work lunches, I told you. With photos of her leaning on your shoulder, with messages at 3 a.m. about wishing things were different." He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "You don't understand the context. Marina and I work closely together. Sometimes work relationships require emotional investment." "Emotional investment?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Is that what we're calling it? You're twisting everything, as usual. These messages, they're taken out of context. Marina was going through a rough patch with Gabe. I was being a friend. A friend who texts her at 2:37 a.m. That thinking about what could have been doesn't change anything." His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain it to me." "Dylan, Explain why you changed your bonus deposit to a personal account I didn't know existed. That stopped him. His mouth opened, then closed. That's for tax purposes. Try again. I don't have to justify financial decisions to you when you're acting crazy. He grabbed his jacket. This is exactly why Marina and I... He caught himself. Why Marina and you what? Nothing. Forget it. He headed for the door, then turned back. You still owe her an apology for all of this paranoid behavior. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Don't embarrass me further by backing out. Oh, I'll be there, I said quietly. And I'll apologize for exactly what I should apologize for. He slammed the door on his way out. That afternoon, I sat across from Victoria Brennan in her corner office, spreading 2 years of evidence across her mahogany desk. She reviewed each document methodically, occasionally making notes on her legal pad. The bonus is interesting, she said, tapping the HR email. In Illinois, performance bonuses earned during the marriage are considered marital property, regardless of which account they're deposited into. He changed the deposit account 2 weeks ago, anticipating the bonus would give him leverage or escape funds. Victoria pulled up a document on her computer. We can file an emergency ex parte motion for a temporary restraining order, freeze the bonus before it's deposited, have it placed in escrow pending division of assets. Can we do that? With this evidence, absolutely. The secret account, the attempt to redirect marital assets judges don't look kindly on financial manipulation during marital discord. She studied the calendar screenshots. These lunch meetings, were they disclosed to HR? I don't think so. Iron Ridge Supply has a policy about disclosing relationships that could affect performance evaluations or bonuses. Dylan oversees operations. Marina runs sales, their departments are interconnected. Victoria smiled. And he just received a $90,000 performance bonus based partly on sales operations integration. If there's an undisclosed personal relationship affecting those metrics, the company could reconsider the bonus entirely. Exactly. We'll file the TRO tomorrow morning. I'll need you to sign the divorce petition as well. We file everything simultaneously. The court will likely issue the order same day, before close of business, which is before the scheduled apology tomorrow night. Victoria's smile widened. The process server can deliver the papers whenever and wherever you'd like. Your husband demanded an apology. You'll give him one, just not the one he's expecting. I spent Thursday evening drafting 2 documents. The first was for Gabe Vale, a simple note with a USB drive attached. You deserve to know the truth. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. The second was my actual apology, crafted with surgical precision. I owe you an apology, but not the one Dylan thinks. I apologize for staying silent while your marriage was being disrespected. I apologize for not speaking up sooner. Most of all, I apologize that you have to learn about it this way. Dylan came home late, after 11 p.m. Marina wanted to make sure tomorrow goes smoothly, he explained, not meeting my eyes. She's nervous about the whole thing. She should be, I said. He mistook my meaning. She's actually being very gracious about this. Lena. Another woman might not be so understanding. I watched him prepare for bed. This man who'd shared my life for 5 years. He hummed in the shower, actually hummed while I sat on our bed holding my phone, looking at the draft email to Gabe that I'd send tomorrow afternoon. You know, Dylan said, coming out of the bathroom. After tomorrow, we should take a trip, reset things. Maybe that Portugal vacation we kept postponing. With what money? The bonus hits my account Monday. We could leave next weekend. His account, not ours. The slip was telling. That sounds nice. I lied, turning off my bedside light. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling. Dylan left early, meeting before the quarterly review, but I knew better. He was probably seeing Marina, coaching her through tonight's performance. I dressed carefully for my own performance: black slacks, white blouse, the pearls Dylan's mother had given me for our wedding. Professional, respectable, the kind of woman who apologizes properly. At 9 a.m., I met Victoria at the courthouse. We filed the divorce petition, the emergency motion for the TRO, and a formal complaint to Iron Ridge Supply's HR department with all supporting documentation. By noon, Judge Harrison had signed the order Dylan's bonus would be frozen and placed in court-supervised escrow, his personal accounts temporarily restricted from major withdrawals, and any attempt to dissipate marital assets would be considered contempt. The process server will arrive at exactly 8:45 tonight, Victoria confirmed. Are you sure you want to do it this way? He demanded a public apology. He'll get public accountability. At 3 p.m., I sent the email to Gabe with the USB drive contents attached. Simple subject line, information you should have before tonight. At 5 p.m., I texted Dylan, getting ready for tonight. Want to do this right. He responded immediately. Thank you for this. It means everything. At 6:30 p.m., Victoria called. HR at Iron Ridge has acknowledged receipt and opened an investigation. They've frozen the bonus pending review of the policy violation. At 7:45 p.m., I stood in front of our bathroom mirror, applying lipstick with steady hands. My phone buzzed. Gabe Vale. Received your email. Thank you. I'll be there tonight. Dylan appeared in the doorway. You look beautiful. Marina will appreciate the effort. I turned to face him fully. I want everyone to remember tonight. He kissed my forehead. Oblivious. Ready. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. We drove to the Vale's house in Dylan's BMW, the one with Marina's lipstick stain still on the passenger visor mirror, a detail I'd photographed but never mentioned. Dylan talked the entire drive about fresh starts and moving forward, about how proud he was that I'd gotten over this jealousy issue. As we pulled into their driveway, I saw the curtains move in the front window. Marina was watching for us. I checked my phone 8:35 p.m., 10 minutes until the doorbell would ring. Remember, Dylan said, squeezing my hand as we walked to the front door. Sincere and brief. Marina doesn't need a long explanation, just acknowledgement that you were wrong. I squeezed back. Don't worry. I know exactly what needs to be said. Victoria's office smelled like leather and confidence. She reviewed my timeline one more time, her manicured finger tracking down the columns of dates, charges, and messages I'd compiled. This is thorough, she said. Obsessively documented. Judges appreciate this level of detail. 2 years of Tuesdays, I said. 104 lunch dates, $12,300, all from joint accounts. The financial angle strengthens everything. She pulled up forms on her computer. Illinois law is clear bonuses earned during marriage are marital property. His attempt to redirect it to a personal account shows intent to dissipate assets. What exactly will the restraining order do? First, it freezes the bonus before it hits any account. The employer will be served with an order to withhold. They'll have to hold the funds pending court resolution. Second, it prevents Dylan from accessing or transferring any marital assets over $5,000 without court approval. And if he tries contempt of court, potential jail time. But more importantly for you, it preserves your claim to those funds during divorce proceedings. She slid documents across the desk. The divorce petition is straightforward, irreconcilable differences. But we're also documenting financial misconduct and deception. The evidence suggests marital funds were used to conduct and maintain an extramarital relationship. Emotional affair, at minimum. The court doesn't technically distinguish. Misuse of marital assets is misuse, regardless of whether the affair was physical. Victoria organized the papers into a neat stack. Now, about the HR complaint. Iron Ridge has a strict policy. Relationships between departments that interact financially must be disclosed, especially when one party influences the other's performance metrics. And Dylan's bonus was partially based on sales operations integration. Marina's sales numbers directly impacted his performance review. It's all in their quarterly reports. Exceptional collaboration between operations and sales. Except nobody knew what kind of collaboration was actually happening. Victoria pulled up Iron Ridge's corporate website. Public company, SEC requirements. They'll have to investigate thoroughly to avoid liability. She made notes on her pad. We'll submit everything to their legal department and HR simultaneously. Companies take this seriously. It's not just about the relationship, it's about the integrity of their compensation structure. What could happen? Best case for you, they void the bonus entirely pending investigation. Worst case, they make him repay portions already calculated based on tainted metrics. Either way, it's leverage. I signed where she indicated, each signature feeling like reclaiming pieces of myself. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Emergency motion for temporary restraining order. Authorization for Victoria to act as my representative. The process server will have both the TRO and the divorce papers, Victoria explained. Once Dylan is served, the orders are immediately effective. The bonus won't move anywhere except court-controlled escrow. And Marina, she's not party to the lawsuit, but Gabe might have his own decisions to make after tonight. Victoria closed the file. You said he confirmed he'll be there. He replied to my email, just said thank you, and I'll be there. Good. Witnesses are helpful, especially injured parties who might pursue their own actions. I spent the rest of Friday afternoon preparing. First, the escrow account paperwork Victoria had arranged for any frozen funds to be held by the court, with provisions for temporary support payments to me during proceedings. Then, organizing the evidence package for HR, the timeline, the expenses, the photos, the messages, everything that showed a 2-year pattern of deception affecting performance reviews and bonus calculations. At 4 p.m., I went to the bank. Our joint savings held $43,000 money we'd scrimped for years to accumulate. I couldn't withdraw it without Dylan's signature, but I could document every penny's location. Our checking had $8,000, the investment account, another $15,000. All marital assets that he'd been prepared to abandon for his secret account and that $90,000 bonus. Ma'am, the teller looked concerned. Is everything all right? Just getting my finances in order, I said, collecting my printouts. My phone buzzed. Dylan, Marina's making appetizers for tonight. She wants everything to be comfortable. I typed back, how thoughtful of her. Another message. Wear something nice but not too formal. Business casual. I know exactly what to wear. At 5 p.m., Victoria called with an update. Motion granted. Judge Harrison signed the TRO. It goes into effect the moment Dylan is served. I've already notified Iron Ridge's legal department they'll freeze the bonus in their system before Monday's deposit. They agreed? They don't have a choice. Court order. Their legal team actually seemed relieved to have judicial coverage for holding the funds. She paused. Their HR director also mentioned they're opening an investigation Monday morning. Your complaint triggered their ethics review process. Will Dylan know? Not until he's served tonight. After that, he'll likely get a call from HR, but by then it'll be too late to do anything about it. I drove home to change. The house felt different now, like a movie set after filming wraps. Familiar, but already abandoned. Dylan's coffee mug sat in the sink, his running shoes by the door. The life we'd built scattered in objects around rooms that would soon belong to strangers. In our closet. I chose carefully. The navy dress I'd worn to his company Christmas party last year, the one where Marina had complimented it while standing too close to my husband. Pearl earrings, low heels that wouldn't impede a quick exit. Professional, respectable, but with an edge of armor. At 6:30 p.m., I sat at my laptop and drafted one final document, my actual apology speech. Not the groveling Dylan expected, but the truth I owed to Gabe and myself. I owe an apology, but not to the person Dylan thinks. Gabe, I apologize for not telling you sooner. I apologize for letting my fear of being wrong keep me silent while your trust was being violated. Marina and Dylan, I apologize for nothing. Your choices were your own. Your deception was deliberate. Your consequences are earned. I practiced it in the mirror, keeping my voice steady and clear. No tears, no trembling. Just truth delivered with the same precision I'd used to document their betrayal. 7 p.m. Dylan came home to change. Big night, he said, pulling on a fresh shirt. After this, we can finally move forward. Yes, I agreed. After tonight, everything changes. He was practically vibrating with anticipation. Marina texted. She made bruschetta and that wine selection you liked from the dinner party. She's really going above and beyond. She always does, doesn't she? Dylan missed the edge in my voice, too focused on his victory to notice. At 7:40 p.m., we got in his car. As he backed out of the driveway, I sent one last text to Victoria. On our way. Her response was immediate. Process server is in position. 8:45 p.m. Exactly. I put my phone in my purse and watched the familiar streets pass by. In 15 minutes, we'd arrive. In 1 hour, Dylan's carefully constructed world would collapse. His bonus would be frozen. His affair would be exposed. His marriage would be over. You're quiet, Dylan said, glancing over. Just thinking about what I need to say. He reached over and squeezed my knee. I'm proud of you, Lena. This takes real maturity. I looked at his hand on my leg, the wedding ring catching the streetlight, the fingers that had signed papers to hide money from me, the same hand that had touched Marina's shoulder in all those photos. I'm proud of me too, I said. We turned onto Marina's street. The house lights were warm and welcoming, a stage set for the performance they'd orchestrated. Dylan had no idea the script had been rewritten. The ending changed. The tables turned. 8:38 p.m. We pulled into the driveway. Ready? Dylan asked. I picked up my purse, felt my phone inside with Victoria's contact pulled up, and smiled at my soon-to-be ex-husband. Let's give them a night they'll never forget. The Vale's living room was staged like a dinner theater soft lighting, wine glasses already poured, cheese board artfully arranged. Marina wore a cream silk blouse that I recognized from a receipt in Dylan's car, one he'd claimed was for his mother's birthday. She rose from the couch when we entered, a practiced smile stretching across her face. Lena, Dylan, welcome. Her voice carried false warmth, the tone of someone accepting surrender. Gabe stood by the window, hands in his pockets. His face was stone, eyes tracking between his wife and mine. No, Dylan wasn't mine anymore. I'd signed those papers 6 hours ago. Thank you for having us, I said, setting my purse on the entry table where I could reach it easily. 8:41 p.m. 4 minutes. Marina gestured to the couch. Please, sit. Can I get you anything wine water? Water would be perfect, I said, though I had no intention of drinking it. Dylan settled into the armchair like a king holding court. His body language relaxed and confident. Marina handed me a glass, her fingers steady. She thought she'd won. They both did. So, Marina began, returning to her spot beside Gabe, who hadn't moved from the window. This is nice, that we can all be adults about the situation. The situation, I repeated, tasting the words. That's an interesting way to describe it. Dylan shot me a warning look. Lena came here to apologize for the misunderstandings. Did she? Gabe spoke for the first time, his voice flat. What misunderstandings would those be? 8:43 p.m. I stood, smoothing my dress. Actually, Gabe's right. There haven't been any misunderstandings. Everything has been perfectly clear. Lena, Dylan's voice carried an edge of warning. I owe an apology, I continued, looking directly at Gabe. To you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner about the Tuesday lunches. 104 of them over 2 years. Marina's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. I'm sorry I didn't mention the $12,000 from our marital accounts spent on those lunches, or the messages at 2 and 3 in the morning about wishing things were different. What the hell are you doing? Dylan stood, his face flushing red. I pulled the folder from my purse, a duplicate of what I'd sent Gabe, what I'd filed with the court, what HR would review Monday morning. I'm giving the apology that's actually owed. Gabe, these are copies of everything. 2 years of documentation, photos, receipts, messages, calendar entries. You vindictive. Dylan stepped toward me, but Gabe moved between us. Let her finish. Gabe said quietly, taking the folder. 8:44 p.m. The Tuesday meetings, I continued, my voice steady despite Dylan's heavy breathing behind Gabe. Every single one at restaurants 20 minutes from their office. Always charged to the joint account Dylan and I share. Dylan told me they were team lunches, but Tom from procurement is lactose intolerant and Ashley from customer service brings lunch from home. Marina stood, her practiced composure cracking. This is ridiculous. We're colleagues, friends. Dylan, tell them. The doorbell rang. 8:45 p.m. Exactly. Everyone froze. Marina looked at Gabe. Are you expecting someone? Dylan's phone buzzed. Then again. Then repeatedly, like angry wasps. I'll get it, I said, walking to the door with deliberate calm. The process server was young, professional, clipboard in hand. Dylan Crane. Dylan stepped into the foyer, his phone still buzzing frantically. Yes, you're being served. The man handed Dylan a thick envelope. Temporary restraining order regarding marital assets and petition for dissolution of marriage. Have a good evening. Dylan stood in the doorway, envelope in hand. As his phone continued its insistent buzzing, he pulled it out, face draining of color as he read. What is it? Marina came up behind him. HR, he said numbly. The bonus is frozen, under investigation for... He looked at me, understanding finally dawning. You filed a complaint about the relationship affecting performance reviews. Your $90,000 bonus, I said clearly, so everyone could hear, was partially based on sales operations integration. Marina's sales, your operations, the same Marina you've been having Tuesday lunches with for 2 years, spending marital funds on, messaging at 3 a.m. about wishes and regrets. Gabe had opened the folder, was flipping through pages. His face shifted from stone to something harder, sharper. 2 years. Gabe, it's not... Marina started. February 12th, last year. He read from a message screenshot. Can't stop thinking about lunch, the way you laughed at my story. 2:43 a.m. He looked up at his wife. I was in the hospital that night. My appendix. You said you were home worried about me. The room contracted around that statement. Dylan's phone rang. He answered automatically. Hello, yes. This is Dylan Crane. His face went grayer with each word. Monday morning required meeting. Yes, I understand. He hung up, looked at me with something between rage and shock. They're suspending me pending investigation, with pay. But Jesus Christ, Lena, you've destroyed everything. No, I said, pulling on my coat. You destroyed everything. I just documented it. Marina grabbed Dylan's arm. They can't do this. We didn't tell them we didn't. Didn't what? Gabe's voice was ice. Didn't spend 2 years lying. Didn't use family money for your dates. Didn't make me look like a fool. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Gabe held up a photo from the folder, Marina leaning into Dylan at a restaurant, his hand over hers on the table, both wearing wedding rings that weren't to each other. Explain this. Dylan found his voice, the familiar gaslighting tone. This is Lena's jealousy manifesting. She's created a narrative from innocent interactions. Innocent. I pulled out my phone, reading from a screenshot I'd memorized. 3:18 am 6 weeks ago. Marina writes, I dream about a different life sometimes, one where I met you first. You replied, I know. Me too. That's innocent. Gabe set down the folder very carefully, like it might explode. He looked at Marina, then Dylan, then me. Thank you, Lena, for having the courage to tell me what my wife and your husband couldn't. Gabe, please. Marina reached for him, but he stepped back. I'll be at my brother's, he said, grabbing his keys from the entry table. Marina, expect to hear from my lawyer. You can't just leave. Marina's composed mask finally shattered completely. We need to talk about this. Like you talked to me about your lunches. Your 3, conversations with another woman's husband. Gabe paused at the door. Dylan, That bonus you're about to lose, hope it was worth it." The door closed behind him with a decisive click. Marina rounded on Dylan. "Do something, fix this." But Dylan was staring at me, the legal papers clutched in his hand, his phone dark after HR's call. "The bonus is gone, isn't it? Even if they unfreeze it, you'll get half in the divorce." "Actually," I said, moving toward the door, "I'll likely get more than half, given the documented financial misconduct. Spending marital assets on an affair partner tends to influence settlement calculations." "This is insane!" Marina's voice pitched high, desperate. "We never even tell her we never—" "Never what?" I turned at the door. "Never physically consummated it. Congratulations. You destroyed 2 marriages for an emotional affair you were both too cowardly to either end or act on. At least if you'd actually slept together, the destruction would have been for something." Dylan sank into the chair, his head in his hands. "My job, the bonus, everything." "Everything," I confirmed. "The house will need to be sold. I've already had it assessed. The accounts are frozen except for basic expenses. Your reputation at Iron Ridge is finished. And Marina." I looked at the woman who'd thought she'd won. "HR knows everything, every lunch, every message, every dollar spent. How do you think that'll play for your sales lead position?" I picked up my purse from the entry table where I'd set it 45 minutes ago, when I'd thought I might be nervous. Instead, I felt clear, clean, like breaking through water's surface after holding your breath too long. "You wanted an apology," I said to Dylan. "There it is. I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner." The last thing I saw before closing the door was Dylan and Marina standing in the wreckage of their living room, the wine untouched, the cheese board still perfect. 2 people who'd thought they were directing the show suddenly realizing they'd been the ones on stage all along. My Uber was already waiting. As we pulled away, I saw the curtain move in the front window, one of them watching me leave. I didn't look back. 8:56 p.m. It had taken 11 minutes to destroy what they'd built over 2 years. The driver glanced in the mirror. Good night. I thought about the TRO securing the bonus, the divorce papers filed, the HR investigation launched, Gabe's departure, and 2 liars left to face each other without their spouses to blame. The best night in 2 years, I said. Monday morning arrived with a call from Victoria at 8:15 a.m. sharp. "Good news, the $90,000 is secured in court-supervised escrow as of 7 a.m. this morning." I sat at my kitchen table in the apartment I'd rented Saturday afternoon, a furnished 1-bedroom in Lincoln Park, month-to-month lease, walking distance from my office. Iron Ridge complied. Without hesitation. Their legal team actually seemed relieved to have court coverage. They transferred the funds directly to escrow rather than risk any liability. Papers rustled on her end. Better news, Judge Harrison approved temporary support from the escrow funds. $4,000 monthly for living expenses, plus your legal fees paid directly from the account. Dylan can't touch it. Not a penny without court approval. He's effectively lost access to what he thought was his safety net. Victoria's voice carried satisfaction. His attorney called this morning, Stuart Walsh from Walsh & Associates. Mid-tier firm, decent but not exceptional. What did he want? To negotiate. He's proposing meditation, quiet settlement, anything to avoid prolonged litigation. I told him we'd consider it after full financial discovery. My phone buzzed with another call. That's HR from Iron Ridge. They've called 3 times since Saturday. Don't answer. Let them work through their process without your input. Your complaint speaks for itself. After we hung up, I made coffee and opened my laptop. 47 emails from Dylan since Friday night. The subject lines evolved from anger to bargaining to desperation. This is insane. We need to talk. You don't understand the full situation. Please answer your phone. This will ruin both of us. I'm sorry. Can we discuss this? The house. What about the house? Please. I deleted them all without reading the bodies. My attorney had advised no direct contact, and I intended to follow that advice precisely. At 10:30 a.m. A different email arrived. Gabe Vale. Subject line, thank you. Lena, I wanted to properly thank you for your courage Friday night. Marina has admitted to the emotional relationship but maintains nothing physical occurred, as if that distinction matters when examining 2 years of deception. I've retained Brennan and Associates. I know you're using Victoria. She recommended a colleague to avoid conflict. Marina has moved to her sister's. I'm keeping the house. The divorce will be straightforward. We have a prenup she apparently forgot about that has a dishonesty clause. Your documentation made that relevant. I'm sorry we both had to find out this way, but I'm grateful you didn't let me continue living a lie. If you need any testimony for your proceedings, I'm available. Gabe. I wrote back simply, I'm sorry it came to this. Wishing you peace in what comes next. Tuesday arrived with news from Victoria that made me set down my coffee. Iron Ridge's investigation is complete. They're terminating Dylan. What? The relationship violated 3 separate policies' disclosure requirements for relationships affecting performance metrics, misuse of company resources for personal matters, and falsification of expense reports. Turns out some of those client lunches he expensed were actually his Marina meetings. He was expensing them to the company, too. Different credit card, same lunches. He was essentially getting reimbursed for his affair. Victoria laughed. Their legal department is considering pursuing repayment of falsified expenses. About $8,000 over 2 years. The bonus, voided entirely. They're classifying it as obtained through compromised performance metrics. The escrow funds are now purely marital assets subject to divorce division. My phone rang immediately. Dylan's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Lena, I've been terminated. Fired. Do you understand what you've done, Marina, too? They walked us both out this morning. 2 careers destroyed because you couldn't handle a friendship. I need access to the accounts. Call me back. Please. Wednesday brought a formal letter from Stuart Walsh requesting an emergency hearing for fund access. Victoria responded with our own motion for exclusive temporary use of the marital residence, citing Dylan's ability to stay with family while maintaining that I'd established separate housing to avoid conflict. He's staying with his brother in Naperville, Victoria informed me Thursday morning, 30 miles from the house. He's also applied for unemployment, which is interesting since Iron Ridge is contesting it based on termination for cause. What about Marina? My colleague representing Gabe says she's moved back to Michigan with her sister. No job, divorce pending, reputation in the industry shot. Gabe's prenup means she gets very little, maybe $50,000 total. Friday, exactly 1 week since the apology that wasn't Victoria called with updates. Settlement conference scheduled for next month. Stuart's already indicating Dylan wants this over quickly. He needs funds to restart his life, and the only significant asset is the frozen $90,000. How much would I get? Given the financial misconduct documentation, spending marital funds on the affair, the attempted concealment of assets, I'd push for 70% minimum, possibly 75%. Judges don't look kindly on spouses who try to hide bonuses while conducting affairs funded by joint accounts. That would leave him with $22,000 at most. Actions have consequences. He thought he was getting $90,000 free and clear. Instead, he's unemployed with a fraction of that, industry reputation destroyed, and a divorce on record. That afternoon, I received a LinkedIn notification. Dylan had updated his profile no longer. Operations manager at Iron Ridge, now seeking new opportunities. Marina's profile had vanished entirely. Saturday morning brought texts from mutual friends who'd heard the news. Most were supportive, though a few suggested I'd gone too far. All marriages have problems, one wrote. Did you have to destroy his career? I didn't respond. They hadn't lived through 2 years of gaslighting, hadn't counted text messages in the dark, hadn't discovered $12,000 of marital funds spent on another woman while being told they were paranoid. Sunday evening, I stood in my new apartment, looking out at the Chicago skyline. My phone showed 3 new voicemails from Dylan, which I deleted unheard. Tomorrow would bring more legal procedures, more paperwork, more steps toward untangling 5 years of marriage. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, I didn't wonder where my husband was, who he was texting, what lies he was crafting. The Tuesday lunches were over. The 3 a.m. messages had stopped. The bonus he'd counted on was sitting in a court-controlled account, waiting for a judge to divide it fairly. Victoria had called it poetic justice, that the money Dylan thought would fund his new life would instead pay for dismantling his old one. His $90,000 bonus had indeed found its way to me first, not through theft or trickery, but through the simple act of documenting truth and letting the legal system work. My phone buzzed with one final email of the week. Marina Vale. Subject line: I hope you're satisfied. I opened it, read her rant about destroyed lives and overreactions, about love that couldn't be helped and boundaries that weren't really crossed. At the bottom, she'd written, Dylan lost everything for nothing. We never even kissed. I typed back a single line. Then you're both fools twice over, once for the betrayal, and once for not even making it worth the price you're paying. I hit send, then blocked her email address. Dylan's too. The past was documented, filed with the court, frozen in escrow. The future was mine alone to build. Tomorrow, Victoria would file our response to Stewart's emergency motion. Tuesday, the house would be formally assessed for sale. Thursday, the first temporary support payment would hit my account money that came from the bonus Dylan had tried to hide, now redistributed by court order. The bonus had found me first, just as I'd promised. But more importantly, I'd found myself not the paranoid wife Dylan had gaslit me into believing I was, but a woman who'd trusted her instincts, documented the truth, and refused to apologize for someone else's betrayal. The city lights glittered below, full of possibility. Somewhere out there, Dylan was learning that actions have consequences. Marina was discovering that emotional affairs destroy just as thoroughly as physical ones. And Gabe, like me, was rebuilding from the truth up. As for the $90,000, it would be divided soon enough. But its real value had already been delivered. It had been the key that unlocked my cage, the leverage that turned the tables, the proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living free, with documentation, legal representation, and every penny you're owed. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. Dylan sat at the respondent's table, wearing the suit I'd bought him for his last promotion, the one he'd never gotten to celebrate. His attorney, Stuart Walsh, shuffled papers with practiced efficiency while Dylan stared at the table's wood grain as if it held answers. Judge Harrison reviewed the documents before her, occasionally making notes. The hearing was scheduled for 30 minutes, a brief procedural meeting to address the emergency motions and establish temporary orders. But those 30 minutes would redistribute the power Dylan thought he'd secured. Regarding the $90,000 bonus currently held in escrow, Judge Harrison began, her voice cutting through the courtroom's recycled air. I've reviewed the evidence of financial misconduct, including $12,000 of marital funds spent on undisclosed personal relationships over a 2-year period. Dylan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I'm also noting the attempt to redirect the bonus to a personal account without spousal knowledge or consent, occurring during a period of marital discord. She looked up from her papers. Mr. Crane, did you believe this bonus was solely your property? Stewart started to answer, but the judge held up her hand. I asked Mr. Crane. Dylan stood slowly. I earned it through my work performance, Your Honor. Performance that, according to Iron Ridge Supply's investigation, was compromised by an undisclosed relationship that affected the metrics used to calculate said bonus. Judge Harrison's tone was neutral, but her eyes were sharp. A relationship funded by marital assets. It wasn't. Dylan started, then stopped. Stewart had probably coached him not to discuss the affair details. The evidence is clear. Judge Harrison continued. The bonus was earned during the marriage, making it marital property. The attempt to conceal it, combined with documented financial misconduct, influences my decision on temporary distribution. She signed an order with decisive strokes. I'm allocating 70% of the escrow funds for Mrs. Hartley's temporary support and legal fees. The remaining 30% will remain frozen pending final divorce settlement. Mr. Crane, any attempt to dissipate other marital assets will be considered contempt. Dylan's head dropped. $27,000. That's all he'd have access to, and only after the divorce was finalized. The $90,000 he'd counted on had shrunk to less than a third, and even that wasn't guaranteed. Furthermore, Judge Harrison added, the marital residence will be listed for sale immediately, proceeds to be divided according to the final settlement, though the court notes the documented misconduct in that determination. Your Honor, Stewart interjected, my client is currently unemployed due to the circumstances. Circumstances of his own making. Judge Harrison cut him off. Termination for cause based on policy violations is not the court's concern. Mr. Crane had equal opportunity to maintain appropriate professional boundaries. She looked between Dylan and me. The final divorce hearing is set for 6 weeks. I strongly encourage mediation to avoid trial, though given the evidence presented, Mr. Crane should consider carefully what a trial might reveal publicly versus a private settlement. The threat was clear, settle quietly, or have every detail of the affair, the financial deception, and his termination become public record through trial testimony. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that seemed to break whatever composure Dylan had maintained. As the judge left, he turned to Stewart, his voice a harsh whisper. I could still hear 30%. That's all. Stewart's response was measured. Given what she could have done, 30% is generous. The financial misconduct alone could have justified a complete freeze. Dylan looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time since I'd walked into the courtroom. His eyes held a mix of rage, disbelief, and something that might have been regret. Satisfied, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I stood, gathering my purse, meeting his gaze steadily. I'm satisfied that the truth is documented, that your bonus went where it should to the marriage you were defrauding, that Gabe knows what his wife was doing during those Tuesday lunches, that Iron Ridge knows why their performance metrics were compromised. You destroyed everything over jealousy. No, I said, walking past his table toward the door. You destroyed everything over ego. You thought you could have the devoted wife, the emotional affair, and $90,000 to start fresh. Instead, you have no job, no marriage, no marina, and less than a third of what you counted on. Victoria caught up with me in the hallway. The first support payment will transfer tomorrow. $63,000 moves to your account for temporary support and my fees. The house listing goes live Monday. Behind us, I heard Stewart telling Dylan, we should discuss settlement. Trial would be inadvisable. Dylan's voice, desperate now. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, I thought. Walking toward the courthouse exit, according to his plan, he would have apologized. I would have groveled. The bonus would have hit his secret account, and life would have continued with Tuesday lunches and 3 texts. Marina would have remained the exciting secret. I would have remained the oblivious wife, and that $90,000 would have been his escape fund. Instead, Marina was unemployed in Michigan, facing her own divorce with a prenup that left her nearly nothing. Dylan was living with his brother, applying for jobs that would require explaining his termination. Gabe was rebuilding his life with the truth as foundation, and I was walking out of a courthouse with financial security and freedom from 2 years of gaslighting. As I reached the courthouse doors, my phone buzzed with a notification from the escrow account. The transfer was already processing. $63,000, 70% of $90,000? The money that was supposed to fund Dylan's deception had instead become my liberation. I pushed through the heavy doors into the afternoon sun. The November air was crisp, carrying the promise of winter. Behind me, through the glass, I saw Dylan still at the respondents' table, Stewart explaining something while Dylan stared at papers that had redistributed his carefully planned future. 6 weeks until the final divorce hearing. The house would sell quickly in this market, another $200,000 to divide, though Victoria was confident we'd get 60% minimum given the documented misconduct. My individual retirement accounts remained untouched. My job at Cobalt Finch continued unchanged, my reputation intact while his lay in ruins. The $90,000 bonus had indeed found me first through legal channels, court orders, and the simple act of documenting truth. Dylan had been right about one thing, that money was about our future. He just hadn't realized it would be funding my future, not his escape. I walked to my car, each step feeling lighter. Tonight, I'd sleep in my apartment without wondering who he was texting. Tomorrow, I'd wake without checking credit card statements for lunch charges. Tuesday would come and go without that sick feeling of knowing he was somewhere with her, spending our money on their emotional affair. The parking garage elevator opened with a soft chime. As I stepped inside, I thought about Marina's email. We never even kissed. All that destruction for something they hadn't even consummated. 2 marriages, 2 careers, 2 reputations ruined for Tuesday lunches, and late-night messages about wishes and regret. My phone showed one new text from Gabe. Heard the hearing went well. Dylan got what he deserved. Thank you again for having the courage. I didn't have to look for truth even when it hurt. I typed back. The truth was already there. I just refused to keep apologizing for seeing it. The elevator doors closed on the courthouse, on that chapter, on 5 years of marriage that ended with a whimper in a small courtroom on a Thursday afternoon. Dylan thought he'd orchestrated the perfect plan, get his wife to apologize to his emotional affair partner, secure his bonus, and maintain his double life. Instead, that apology became an exposé. That bonus became evidence. That double life became unemployment and disgrace. As I drove away from the courthouse, I passed Riverbend Bistro, the site of so many Tuesday lunches, now just another restaurant where I'd never eat again. Through the window, I saw a couple at what had probably been Dylan and Marina's regular table, laughing over wine at 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I wondered if they were colleagues, friends, or something more. I wondered if someone was at home, wondering why lunch was taking so long, why the credit card showed another charge at the same place, why the phone stayed silent all afternoon. Then I stopped wondering. Their story wasn't mine to know or judge. My story, the one where the betrayed wife apologized her way to victory, was complete. The $90,000 bonus had found its rightful owner. The truth had been documented, notarized, and filed with the court. The ending hadn't been the one Dylan scripted, but it was the one he'd earned. Every Tuesday lunch, every 3 a.m. text, every gaslighting accusation of jealousy they'd all led here, to a courtroom where his bonus became my freedom, where his plans became evidence, where his demand for an apology became the catalyst for his downfall. Justice, I learned, sometimes comes dressed as compliance. Sometimes the best revenge is saying, yes, yes, I'll apologize. Yes, I'll meet with her. Yes, I'll do exactly what you asked. And then letting the truth do the rest. The $90,000 would be fully distributed within 6 weeks. The house would sell. The divorce would finalize. Dylan would rebuild from almost nothing. Marina would disappear into Michigan's suburbs. Gabe would heal with his prenup intact. And I would continue forward, funded by the very bonus Dylan had tried to hide, living proof that sometimes, when someone demands you apologize for their betrayal, the correct response is to document everything, lawyer up, and let the courts sort out who owes what to whom. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced betrayal or stood up for yourself when everyone expected you to back down? I'd love to hear your experiences.